See if I can get this one to work this time. All right. Oh, welcome back. This is Chad Everett Broshears, the host of Growing Up in the Wilds of Suburbia. And I'm going to do my second welcome back video on self-expression and the letting go. But before we get into the letting go phase portion of it, I just want to introduce this. If you caught the earlier part with all the technical challenges, by all means, please disregard it. This is something that is getting to be a little frustrating with this new system. YouTube has changed a few things using encoders now instead of being able to just broadcast live. So I'm looking at and just making sure I keep an eye on where we're at with our connection. Plus, Comcast is not a very reliable internet service, so I'm pretty disappointed given the actual package that I've got with them. So anyway, let me get to it. All right, so this is returning episode 2, and it is on being authentic. So first off, just cover a few things on the authenticity of our interactions with people. I know you've had the experiences where people say things like, oh, hey, how are you today? It's like, oh, good. You've almost certainly caught yourself doing it. I know I've done it on both sides. Typically, I use things to try to actually pause people for the moment. So if somebody says to me, oh, you're fine, I stop, I give them a little laugh. And then I say, I had absolutely no idea I'd be complimented today. And you took me off guard, so thank you very much for the compliment. Most people stop and think about it for a second, and then they give me the, oh, I didn't mean it that way. And I'm like, well, that's perfectly fine. I appreciate it. And then there is, little things like, how are you today? And if I catch somebody telling me, well, I'm okay, if I were to complain, who'd want to listen to me anyway? Or, most people don't care unless they're having a worse day than you and they just try to one-up you or whatever. And I'm like, the person that does actually, it's, when you're dealing in a world of people that don't have maturity enough to be present in the moment with you, they're dealing with other things, and it's not necessarily maturity and that's negative, them lacking, but it's more of just they have other things that are just bogging them down, and their own life is not as organized as they want it to be. So whether it's emotionally organized or done so in the living habitat or whatever area that that degree of organizations in allows them to be more present with you in the moment, so long as they have things taken care of. And this is a common thing for most of us, and I know it's in my life too. There's 8 different areas to try to keep organized, or 8 large areas with derivations. So it depends on what's in and what's out of that arena of organization. And when I say organization, it means what do I want to accomplish, or what is it that I want to experience that I'm currently not experiencing, or what I'm currently not quite not clear to be experiencing in the near future. So as an example, if I want to have my bills paid well, but I haven't organized my finances enough to make sure my bills would be paid, perhaps I spend more than I make, or perhaps I'm distracted by other things that keeps me from keeping an eye on my deadlines for when the bills are due. That's just an easy example. You can get into relationship things too. The conversations that you didn't have at whatever stage of the relationship, whether it was in the very beginning when the excitement was really high and the idea that the other person is going to be something that satisfies areas of our existence that we really seek out. I'll do a little sidebar to add to this. If anyone that's watching this video is familiar with Moshe Feldenkrais, you'll recognize this if you've read multiple of his books. But this was in Human and Mature Behaviors, Movement in Human Mature Behaviors. And he talks about how we build profiles for people. So as we're dealing with, we meet somebody new, they physically are pleasing to us, or the aesthetics are pleasing. The outside character actions or behaviors that are observed or desirable, we have more of a void to fill in after the superficial. So like the person, like some example, the woman could be very pretty, and have a lot of different attributes that I would consider to be highly attractive, and not knowing her as a deep person or as a character or intimately. And I don't mean intimately physically as much as I mean intimately as a whole, where I brought her closer to myself, that I could actually feel her existence or her day, her mood, her shifts, her experiences, and not just have the superficial overview where it's like they're saying something and I'm not paying attention as much, or I'm in my own mind paying attention to my thoughts, not so much what they're saying. Um, and we can spend a lot of time fantasizing the person based off of the way they look, the way they carry their body, the languages that they speak, body language, their poising and posturing, which is obviously the way they carry their body, the smell, the choice of perfume, or their pheromones, the way they wear their hair, the color of their eyes, things like that. We're looking for things on a genetic level, what would be desirable to, actually have procreate with, or typically I'd say it boils down closer to that anyway. But we're looking for everything we can kind of like, what we have bought into as our fantasy of a partner. So, and then we get into the reality of that person. They start filling in the voids by the more time we spend with them. The more you get to hug them, touch them, feel them, the more of a physical profile you build for them with an expectation that person will be that which you've learned. The emotional side too, as you start to get into it. We've become very, very accustomed in our society to hide who we are. We are not authentic beings in the very beginning with most people. We are the resume of ourselves. We are what we want everyone to think we are, or what we aspire to be, without telling them necessarily that we aspire to that, as much as we kind of make them believe that we are that proficient in these particular skills or crafts. So I'm we get closer and closer to people, and we have fewer and fewer voids, which therefore we have less and less fantasizing about things, because the more we get to experience that person, the less we really have to fantasize. Like in the very beginning, we typically do a lot of fantasizing, like daydreaming, sitting there at work or wherever it is where you're occupying your thoughts, away from what you're doing, because what you're doing doesn't have the same level of allure or pleasure as the person that you have on your mind could bring. And then the less you know about that person, the more excitement you usually have. You'll build up your excitement as you learn some earlier things that they matched with what you want to experience. This doesn't have to be with a person that you plan on being physically intimate with, or deeply physically intimate with. It could be, just somebody you've fantasized about having a friendship with, somebody you can do things with, somebody that can share like-minded desires and endeavors. Maybe it's you haven't been able to play chess with somebody that is skilled as you are, and then all of a sudden now you've met somebody that is that skilled, and you're overjoyed at that, and you may sit and fantasize about playing chess with that person. This is another thing, that in our language we use in a colloquial sense certain words that actually make the word lose their values. But as far as the actual building of profile, we get to know these people, and we stop having the luster that we had in the beginning typically. Now sometimes we find things that match well with our desires, and other things that we're acceptable to our desires, but not necessarily that they've been matched or met. And then there's things that we do not wish to tolerate amongst our partners. So we stop filling in voids with fantasy, and we start putting in the real blocks for the person, at least the person at that stage in their life. Doesn't mean that what they've had you believe of themselves based off the way they presented themselves doesn't mean they won't develop into that. It just means that they may not currently be that, and we hold it against them when we find out. So we go through our life with this. It's the same reason why we still look up to the stars and the cosmos with such deep desire to understand it more, and we can fantasize about it all day. We can look to the ideas of heaven in the same thing, because it is the unknowable. Even though we've have stories to get your mind wrapped around it, you have so much room to play that it gives you a place that's almost euphoric to fantasize about that being. It falls into the same concept of going on vacation. It's like I'm going to go to Tahiti, and while I'm there, I'm going to enjoy all these things. You have the postcards, you have the videos that you've seen, you have the phone call confirmations you've had with the resort or wherever you're staying. You've had people that have given you their own rendition of it. And then you have what you get when you get to the airport, and it's clogged up, and you've got to wait forever. You got to go through baggage check, and then you have to go through the invasive aspects of getting through the airport security. You do all of these things just to find out that it's not quite the dream vacation that you fantasized about. Same thing with human beings. It's the same thing with our friendships that we have. We spend a lot of time wanting to just be accepted, wanting to be connected. And that's one of the reasons why we get so excited when we meet somebody and they have that level of anxiety that's fantasy driven. The excitement. So this is in its own part what happens when we see people that we do or do not recognize, and we acknowledge them and not acknowledge them in public. We look to ostracize people that want to offer intimate space before the safety experience shows up, that it's okay or safe to be intimate. Now, this is a social conditioning aspect. There's degrees that we should naturally be held off because of self-preservation. It's a natural inclination. But then there's other things that have us extend that time for self-preservation based off of, our own letdowns, our own disappointments. So in this, people that come by or people you interact with that, hey, how you doing? Well, I would complain, but who's really going to want to listen? I'll tell you that if I have the skill set to help you out, I'm certainly going to be happy to listen. I'm happy to listen anyway because I love creating solutions to challenges. It is a joy that I have in my life. Oh, I don't draw in and try to get into the drama of how upsetting it is as much as it is to acknowledge that you're not exactly appreciating what you're going through, or realizing that you might actually be appreciating what you're going through because it gives you a topic to talk about on a regular basis with people that make it feel like you're important, whether that's victim persona important or whatever it may be. I see that this is something that's present, but if you come to me with your challenges, what if I do know how to help? And you decide you don't want to share that, you may be stuck. This falls in exactly the same concept of what, Mother Dearest used to tell us. And I don't mean my mother necessarily, but the old adage seems to be, what did your mother used to tell you? If you have nothing nice to say, say nothing at all. Well, I'll tell you now, in my own authentic being, that this is some good stuff. But that in my own authentic being, I have grown mature enough that if you've upset me, I can be responsible but also expressive enough that you understand that I'm upset. Not to suppress it, not to hide it so you don't understand the impact of what happened, but also enough that I can say that this may not all belong to you. Like all of this upset may not all belong to you. Oh, this is a realization that I've gone through as I have learned to let go from some of my upset that I held against my ex-girlfriend. I realized that her need to move on was that I accepted that we be friends, because it's something that it torments her not to be friends. And a part of me that wanted retribution for what happened had me not wanting to accept her friendship and completely dismiss her from my life, in which I spent many months attempting that. It's not the prettiest thing that I've ever done, and it's not the kindest things that I've ever said. But having that realization and being, compassionate enough of myself that I was in my own pain gave me the opportunity to really be present to it all. But I had to be present with myself first, or I would not heal from it. I would have suppressed it, put the optimism band-aid on it, and slowly ate that pill of sorrow for many years, knowing that my racket, my narrative about women would come into play, and that there would be one more that actually was contributing to that narrative, trying to give me solidified evidence or proof that it's true, that women are that way, that women are how they are, and that they're not necessarily all supportive of me, but more supportive of themselves. You know, the narratives that we create in our earlier lives as we interact with people that be of that the desired gender selection, or that gender preference. We do have that where, you know, we get these different exposures. You know, I guess it's beneficial to kind of walk you through that to give a better understanding of for anyone that doesn't quite have it. I have gone through quite a bit of training in my life, and all of it which I've really enjoyed. One of them actually helped me realize my narratives on women. And, you know, I would hide with optimism the beautiful things I would express about, you know, what I want in a partner and what I've experienced and all of this, but my little triggers, you know, the triggers that make you recoil, the triggers that make you feel like it's like just this very uncomfortable thing. Those triggers were always hidden whenever I was not willing to live authentically with my real existence, my real experiences. Doesn't mean that my real experiences that I've had need to be my future. It just means that it was actually running the show in the background, because no one knew my triggers. Hell, I didn't even know them. So the three experiences that I had that made me think or come up with something about women, and it being that there's some sort of narrative about them. One of them was a nurse that we had working at my home whenever I was a child, around 8 years old, who I had developed a huge crush on. And this woman in particular, she was very flirtatious with my father. She is just, as a whole, she was a flirtatious person. I was one in 6 boys. At this stage, there were 5 of us remaining. And my older brother, Jason, would say to me that if you really like a girl, you show them by putting your tongue in their mouth. Now, at 8 years old, I really didn't know, but I had seen adults do this, but I had never done it. So one evening, you know, and this woman worked at our home. She was a nurse that was there to give us 24-hour nursing assistance. As my oldest brother had cerebral palsy. He has since passed, but so I went to give her a kiss goodnight, stuck my tongue in her mouth, and she freaked out, justly so. And Jason thought it was the funniest thing in the world, so he laughed about that for days, and he probably still laugh about it when he hears the story. But so I had caught my father having an affair with her, and at 8 years old, we were at her house. Myself, my younger brother, her 2 kids, 2 of her kids anyway. No, actually 3 of her kids. And her and my father were in the bedroom together. And I couldn't sleep and didn't realize what was happening, so I went to the room to try to get in. I wasn't able to get in, but I did hear the distinctive sounds that would let me know that they were in the middle of, you know, of having sex. And I was left with like just this sinking sensation in my heart and my chest. Like it was broken. Like it just sank to my stomach. This is also where I recognized how I deal with high ends of stress. I clean excessively, and I realized that this is the very first time I ever expressed this that I can recall. And I just started scrubbing her kitchen tile floors, and then it just came to me about an hour into cleaning it at 3 o'clock in the morning that what was I doing? Why would I dare? Why in the hell would I want to clean up her mess, her house? So I wrote a little note in crayon expressing how upset I was with both of them, but mainly at her, and put it on a little piece of Scotch tape, laid it up against the door ever so quietly. Then I slapped the tape, and I just left the house, went walking down the ditch, and then my father came to get me about 15 minutes later in his truck and guilted me back into his vehicle. But I'd made up in my mind at that time that women absolutely did not care about me. And then at 16, my supposed high school sweetheart, a young lady that I'd taken her virginity, and I was absolutely just in love with her. we were sitting down in the parking lot of a movie theater. This was, oh wow, this was at least 3 months, but a teenage relationship at 3 months seems like forever, right? So it's about 3 months into the relationship, or 5 months, something along those lines. It was still relatively short, but yet seemed like a long time to me. But I'd had a huge crush on her for a while before this, that we both kind of crushed on each other before we finally dated. But we were sitting down, legs interlocked together, on the ground in the asphalt in the parking lot. And she looked at me as she was going to say something, and I could see her mouth, her face start to formulate words. And to me, I just jumped to the exciting thing that I thought it might be. And that was, she's going to tell me she loves me. And I looked at it, I was like, I was prepared to say it back. I was prepared to respond. And when she looked me in the eyes and she started to say, so she said, "Chad, I have something to tell you." And I said, "Yeah, what is it?" She was, every time we've been together, and I'm thinking to myself at this, it's like, this is absolutely proof positive. She's going to tell me she loves me, and, there's going to be the happily ever after that follows this, of course. The mystery of whether or not she's in love with me is going to be gone after this sentence. It's what went through my mind. And she said, "Every time we've been together, I've thought about your two best friends." And I said, "Excuse me?" And she goes, "Yes, I've thought about your two best friends." And I'm just like, I was so challenged to process this. And I finally got, like she was talking, like she was fantasizing about my two best friends every time her and I slept together. And I was just devastated. So I started crying, and my face had everything that could possibly come out of it. Just the most vile moment of my facial expression history, where it's just everything's coming out. It's not just like I didn't care. I was like, I guess my eyes were snotting. Hell, I couldn't tell you. I know that that's anatomically impossible, but still, it was just all over everything. And I was just, sucking my lip, and the whole and at that moment, I just realized that women can be so dangerous. They could just really just destroy me. And as I tried to look away from her, to be able to gain my posture and gain my composure again, and process, and looking down towards the ground away from her, she grabbed my chin and pulled it back up. Now again, she was not a very strong person. I'm sure she's still not. But because she was just a little skinny, like tiny, very skinny girl. She pulled my face back, and I didn't fight it too much, because I was hopeful that she would tell me that it was all a joke. And it turns out, once I got my face back up to her, she just sat there and stared at me. And I'm still dealing with developing this narrative that women are dangerous. And I'm not saying this to myself. I'm in the experience of it. And I said, "What are you doing?" And she goes, "I just wanted to watch you. I just wanted to see you cry." And I'm like, oh my God, what am I dealing with here? This is the most disturbing thing that I've ever experienced from women. And her brother comes over, and he's already upset. He's like, "What the hell is going on? Why are you crying, Chad? What a Paige would to the girl." He said, "What did you do to him?" And she's just sits there silent. And I try to tell him, but I'm just like trying to get away from everybody at the same time, because him and I were friends. They were pretty good friends at this point. And I finally break from her, and I try to, I'm just like trying to gain myself. But I developed the narrative out of that women they're dangerous. They're very dangerous. And then the third, because this happens in threes for human beings, was a young lady that I moved in with that was actually about 8 years older than me. I was 20, going on 21. And I moved in with her, and she seemed to be a very sweet girl. We had a wonderful honeymoon phase for the first year we were together. It's like notes back and forth. It was the cute little, we're falling for each other thing. And it really seemed like it felt right. It felt great. Here's this, a little bit older woman. She's serious about a good relationship. She wants to treat me well, and I want to treat her well. We're excited to be around each other. She has 2 kids that also seem to like me a lot. And the next thing I know, it was almost to the day 1 year later that everything went from this honeymoon to this highly controlling, almost nightmare type experience, where I had to, as I was working for a power company, as a temporary employee, which is not easy to get on regular. They can let you go at any time. You go on unemployment when you're not there. And they can do it to you on a whim, like on a Friday or whatever during the week, and you just had no awareness it was coming, nor when you're going back. So I felt out of control of my life then. And there she was trying to gain as much control as she could by just trying to pick or provoke fights every time I would do anything outside of what she wanted me to do. And me being young and ambitious, but also naive in relationships, I knew that I wanted to be pleasing in my relationship with my partner, so I would do more of what she requested than to really put up an argument or a fight, because fighting is not my thing. I'm not a big fan of it. I prefer to, I'll fight if I need to because it's just a self-expression thing, but I prefer to talk my way through things. But still, emotions will do what emotions do to us, right? Based on our level of exposure. So I realized in this that, one, it looks like the video feed stopped, but I'm just going to keep going. So I did realize in it that I used to have to lie to her so I could go and see my mother and my father, because I'd first try to tell her that I would go see them, and she would get really, really angry, and she'd fight with me. And it would be not like a 2-minute fight or anything. It would be a day long, 2 days long, week long, whatever, because I do something that she disagreed with until I conformed to her position. So I had realized how dangerous, or how challenged I was being self-expressed. It was a very controlling relationship. But this is the third big impact relationship that actually gave me my third narrative, which was that women were controlling. Ultimately, we did split up. It was Martin Luther King Day 2003. It's interesting the things that we'll remember and how we remember them. But so I ended up, I developed that narrative that women would control me, that they were controlling. So here I am, that they don't care about me, they're dangerous, and they're controlling. So if I don't bring this up for potential relationships in the future, and that this is a narrative that I have to deal with on a regular basis, that it waits around the corner like a sleazy dope dealer, it just waits for me to be weak, or it waits for me to not necessarily fully be present. It overstrenuates me. So it's easy for it to show up whenever I'm not paying attention or whenever I'm stressed out. And I've been doing a lot of work to try to grow out of this, but I think that these are some of the things that they're so foundational and they're so fundamental that we just become faster to be able to work with it the more we put practice into it. But so if I don't share this with people and let them understand this about my past, then they're doomed to deal with the repercussions of it if it's ever triggered. This comes from not being able to be intimate with your partner on many levels, and that's create the safe space. So to be authentic in our life, we have to express what's truly there. No matter how ugly or how good it looks, no matter how anything it is, we have to be okay with sharing it. Now, be responsible, as responsible as you can be. It doesn't mean don't say something because you can't be responsible at the moment. So hey, I'm really, really upset right now, so what I'm about to say or do may be outside of what you're familiar with, or I'm already triggered and I need to clean this up with you. So cleaning it up is also a good thing. I mean, you can do that easily in the aftermath. You can go back and say, get the other person to understand where you came from rather than trying to hide it, sweep it under the rug. We do that so often. So when somebody walks by and says, hey, how you doing? I genuinely want to know. I genuinely want to communicate with them. And I try. I try to live as authentically as possible. I'm just naturally a nice guy. I default that way. A lot of that is just because my parents trained me to be the way I am, and I just became that. But also, I'm responsible, and to an extent, of course, and I prefer that I just be true to myself. So, for those of you that do watch this and think to yourself, I waiting to find the right person. Stop waiting. Be the right person. Be the expression of the person you wish to be with in your life. If you're looking for a relationship like that, be that person. If you're going around blaming everybody else, you really should blame yourself first. Perhaps the people you keep meeting are drawn to you because of your behaviors. It's not a roulette wheel, or anything like that that's just rolling around waiting to give you a chance opportunity for the perfect relationship. They don't exist. You have to create them. You have to create the life you want, or deal with the life you're given, the life you receive. Be it cause in the matter, or don't be it cause for anything and complain about it. One thing's for sure, if you can start mastering the art of living authentically, people will know who you are. Stop being afraid of people not liking you, or that you'd be kicked out from the people that you do like. And this goes that way for anybody. Anybody who says, I don't care if somebody likes me or not. Being without a tribe is a nasty sentence to isolation. Yeah, some of us choose, well, I think we all choose it at some point. And I've chosen my ostracization of being in a tribe because of choosing take the career path that I'm in and not having much time to create a life outside of that. But now that things have shifted a bit in my hours, I have more opportunity. So, but to be authentic, first stage of that is just to let go of trying to look good. And I'm on, where are we at? I'm on day 8 of just being in the moment with my ex and allowing her to have the life that she wants to have now without me trying to banish her from my life, and that's what she needs to move on. So it's great. It's much more comfortable. So anyway, I've got to shorten it up. I was going to go a little bit longer, but what the hell. If you like this video, share it. If you got something out of it, please, by all means, take it with you. Share with me. Comment on the videos, comment on the Facebook, it doesn't matter. Wherever it is that you wish to comment, let me know what your thoughts are. And other than that, guys, I'll see you soon. Hopefully I'll be able to get this situation taken care of with this damn encoding system. I'll likely have to get a new computer. This one's a bit older, so I'll get one this weekend, I guess. Alright, well, this is Chad Everett Broshears, the host of Growing Up in the Wilds of Suburbia, and I'm looking forward to the next conversation. So, until then, be real, guys. Give people the greatest present that you can, which is just to be present with them. Yeah. Alright. We'll see you guys soon. Until then.